Well, Shabbat Shalom, beloved. How are you today? Good morning. This is the Sabbath morning, and I am here to speak with you about walking in the light, discovering the secret wisdom encoded within Torah's timeless stories. This is Bill Bullock coming to you live this morning again from the Biblical Lifestyle Center in Texarkana, USA. Welcome to our discussions. I have some questions to start out with you, some questions for us all to ponder and think about today as we begin to study Parsha number 39 of the great tome of the Divine Wisdom, Torah. Parsha 39 is called Chukat, and here we go. The questions I have for us to begin with, to get our minds working, get our hearts alive, and our spirits awakened. The first one is this: how ready are you for what comes next? The Holy One has set out all of creation, all of human history from beginning to end, part of which we've seen, part of which we have not yet to see. But how ready are you for what comes next in His grand plan? How ready, beloved, are you? How dry or how hydrated is your soul? How pure is your heart? One question begets another. As we ask the question, how ready are you for what comes next? I had to ask you the next important question, criteria question, which is how dry or how hydrated is your soul? And how pure is your heart? How clean are your hands? How functional is your mind? How sharp are you for the spiritual realities, not just the things of humanity and its physical mortal life? How blurred are your lines? How conflicted is your soul? These are questions to ask, but the main question that stands before us now, all of us, is how ready are you for what comes next? You see, because things are about to change. Secret wisdom is encoded in every aspect of Torah, and all of its narratives, all of its stories. I call them a macro narrative composed of many micro narratives. All the stories belong in the greater story, and all are in sequence in accordance to the divine plan. And to know the essence of every story, every micro story, we need to remind ourselves of what the macro story is and what we have learned thus far, because we're applying things on an incremental basis. The secret wisdom is encoded in every aspect of every parsha, but it begins with the title that's been given to it by the sages that we've learned to know it by. This week's parsha, Parsha 39 of the tome, is Chukat. It's a noun derived from a verb, hakak in Hebrew, chet, kuf, kuf. Hakak means to cut, to carve. Like if you were going to carve a rut or a furrow in a field, to plow, to cut, to carve, to engrave, to inscribe. It's this idea of cutting into something and making a pathway in it. So to cut a pathway, to chart a course. Chukat comes from a verb which means to cut, to carve, to engrave, to inscribe, to cut a path, to chart a course. So we're going to talk about courses and paths. We're going to talk about ruts and things we walk in, a pathway for water to flow in, and ways for water to flow, because that's what you do. You dig a furrow or a ditch, and that's the idea, Chukat. Chukat is making a pattern that things can flow into and out of. So sometimes this word, Chukat, the name of the parsha, is translated as statutes or ordinances or laws by English speakers who are familiar with those things, but not familiar with the Creator's viewpoint of making Chukat. So though you'll see in English translations of the Torah words like statutes and ordinances and laws as being the interpretation of Chukat, I will just encourage you to think a little deeper and think Hebraically as opposed to in a Western mindset for a little while, and see if we can learn some secrets of the Chukat themselves, the secret wisdom encoded even in the parsha's title. Chukat is much deeper than statutes or ordinances or laws. Remember, the statutes, ordinances, and laws are all made by men to govern men's behavior. Chukat are much deeper than that. Chukat are not legislated or decreed like governmental statutes and ordinances or laws. They are eternal. They're not founded in men's ideas or concepts. They are eternal, and they are Holy One. They are instilled and awakened by the divine breath, the Nishmat Hayim, as it's called in Genesis 2:7. And so we have this idea that Chukat is something divinely ordained to create a rut or a ditch or a wadi, a pathway in which waters of life, the river of life, can flow. Now you understand why I said Chukat is so much deeper than statutes, ordinances, or laws. Chukat are basically core disciplines engraved into our lives, engraved into our history and our future, engraved into our souls by the Holy One, inspiring and motivating us to do His will, to do the greater things, the higher things of life, inspiring and motivating us to do the kingdom. The Spirit of the living God be the water that flows through us and through our actions. They are cross-generational behaviors, Chukat are. Cross-generational behaviors that are in our DNA. The practices and traditions which, though we don't know exactly why we do them, we know they're ingrained in us at the very deepest levels, and they lie at the root of who we are. Chukat, ingrained in us in the deepest levels, lying at the root of who we are. They're very important, not ordinances and laws. So we have to consider the first use of the verb huk. The Holy One, in introducing Himself to Yitzhak, said this, Yitzhak, the son of Abraham. He said, I will make your seed multiply as the stars of the heavens. And I will give to your seed all these lands, talking about the land of Eretz Canaan, or Eretz Israel. And in your seed, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. And he tells him why. Because Abraham shemad my voice, he shemad my voice, and he shemard my mishmeret, my charge, my instructions, and my mitzvot, and my hukot. Oh, here we go. Hukat is found in this verse. Because Abraham shemad my voice and shemard my sayings, including my hukot and my Torot, because of that I will make your seed multiply as the stars of heaven. I am creating something, a furrow, a watershed upon the earth for the Spirit of the living God to move and bring about great things. These are what the Chukat are all about. And then we get the phrase Chukat Olam, which means one of these foundational keystones of spirit to man, to flesh activity, spirit directing the flesh activity that will last forever. Now, the Holy One says, Zuk Chukat HaTorah. This is a foundational decree of the disciplines Asher Tziva Adonai that the Holy One has enjoined. And it is to be Chukat Halam, a decree forever throughout this age for Bnei Israel and for Hager, for the foreigner who sojourns, gers, among them. Zuk Chukat HaTorah Asher Tziva Adonai. It is to be Chukat Olam, a decree forever, a plowed, furrowed field forever for Bnei Israel and for the foreigner who gers among them. Well, now, the other question we have as we begin to enter this next phase of walking in the furrows, walking in the wadis of the Spirit, how much uncleanness associated with death, dying, and decay in particular have we been exposed to? Tumeh, or tumat met, it is called in Hebrew. The idea of there is a certain thing about being around death, around the decaying decomposition process, around the stench, around the frequency diminishing, because life has a frequency, and when death comes and the last breath is breathed, that frequency goes to nothing, goes to zero, flatlines. Being associated with this process in all of its phases brings into us an exposure to matmet, the death, decay, and dying mode. Mortal life and bodily health are precious, but they are very fragile gifts. They're precious gifts from the Creator, but they're very fragile gifts. And every living creature and each person spends some time each day on the the threshold in between life and death, thriving and deteriorating, flourishing and decaying. You know it. Our muscles, our minds, all these things, all aspects of who we are in the natural flesh. Sometimes we're growing and learning. Other times, in the same day, maybe the same moment, we're freezing up and deteriorating. This is the fragile line, the critical threshold we walk between life and death. And sometimes the realm of death overwhelms us, and the decomposition, decay begins to affect us adversely. These are like the morning and evening transition points of light and darkness. So, Chukat, Parsha 39, begins with chapter 19, verse 1, and runs through chapter 22, verse 1. We're walking in its light. That's what we'll be doing today. It is phase 3, week number 5 of the special wilderness training protocols we've been reading in the book of Numbers. The Holy One has some of the most incredibly dangerous missions and the most difficult assignments imaginable in mind for us as his called and chosen ambassadors and emissaries of light. Dangerous missions, difficult assignments. Are we ready for the next phase? Are we ready for the next instruction? Are we ready for the next part of the mission? Are we ready for the next phase of the plan? You see, the Holy One is not sending us out in the world to be barbarians or loose cannon jihadists or arrogant conquistadors or as colonizers. We're not here for that reason. We'll find out why we're here, but we know this. He is sending us out into the world as sheep among wolves. Are we ready for this next phase? Let's stop and have our call to worship and get our hearts and minds attuned and ready by singing the Baraku in the Hebrew, the blessing before reading from the actual words of the Torah. Join me if you would, if you can. Baruch Adonai Hamborak, Baruch Adonai Hamborak Leolam Vayed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Bakar Banu Mikol Ha'amin, V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. So be it. Now open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah and in its stories, for we are just strangers in the earth. So do not hide your instructions for living from us. With the Baraku being sung and our hearts now open wide and our minds ready to hear what comes next, gather around, children of the Most High. It's story time again, and boy, do we ever have some micro stories to go and fit into the big macro story. The story continues with our return to relevance. This nation of Israel has been, and in our stories, has been secluded for months, for a year, basically after the release from Sinai. We've been at Mount Sinai, now we're in the desert, but we haven't seen other human beings hardly ever at all. We're about to be reintroduced on the world stage to the raging nations, to the peoples of the earth. We have been living with the Holy One as our guide and each other as our only companions, and now we're going to have to face the real world. Our return to relevance on the world stage. After our extended season of exclusion in the wilderness, or seclusion in the wilderness, the Holy One is about to reintroduce us and make us relevant to the world again. It's a little scary. It's a little frightening. Are we ready for this next phase of the grand plan? Other people and other nations and other cultures and ethnicities have been able to ignore us for a long time. Indeed, they have been able to live their lives and go on about their businesses and their ways even as if we didn't even exist. They've been able to do that in our story, in our macro story, for about 4 decades now. And in the world, they've gone for centuries. But all that time that the world could just ignore us and live their lives as if we did not exist, that time is about to be over. Things are about to radically change. We are about to be reintroduced on the world stage. With Parsha Chukat, it happens. Parsha Chukat is the stunning storyline, the historical seed of Abraham parable brought to life in ways that we haven't seen before. We're going to face the raging nations. The Holy One is chosen to reveal his grand plan through the stunning storyline and historical seed of Abraham parable that we've been talking about. But we haven't seen it actually revealed to humanity, to actually face the trials of the raging nations yet. That's going to change this week. Parsha Chukat turns the heat up a little bit. And the issue of what is the grand plan that he's put this parable into and introduced it to the world, the grand plan is to redeem humanity as a species to its original B'Tselem Elohim calling. Remember B'Tselem, in the image of the Holy One? This is Genesis 1:26. The original calling of humanity was to be in the image, or literally in Hebrew, in the shadow, to be the shadow, the earthly shadow of the Holy One on earth. He is in heaven, we are on earth. The light is cast, and we become the shadow. That's what we're supposed to look just like him, do what he does, as he does, at his feet, at his pace, for his motivations. We're supposed to be B'Tselem Elohim. That's the purpose and the role of mankind. However, we have fallen away from that, and now the Holy One has a plan to bring it back, to bring back the B'Tselem Elohim, calling to mankind first one nation, then Israel, and then to the rest of the world, one family at a time. So this is the parsha in which the B'Tselem, the grand plan will meet a critical crossroads. We'll come to a critical crossroads. And we'll enter a new, exciting but intensely suspenseful and difficult phase. Phase 3 of the grand plan will begin this week. Buckle your seatbelts, beloved. Oh, yes. I said there will be a lot of action, a lot of micro stories, micro narratives. We'll hear buckle your seatbelts because the action in Parsha Chukat is going to get fast and furious and intense. But you say, wait a minute. Let's make sure we get this grand plan, the greater narrative, the macro narrative down before we get too deep into all these specific, intense encounters we're about to have. Before all that takes place, let's consider in some depth the underlying essence of the grand plan. The underlying essence of the Holy One's grand plan, the macro of the whole thing, is that he wants to redeem the human species to its original Genesis 1:26 calling. We're supposed to bear the image of his likeness and serve creation as his shadow, and therefore to play a caretaker. This is the next phase of that, is to play the caretaker role in nurturing the whole of the Ha'aretz realm, the earth realm, to its fullest potential. Nurturing the Ha'aretz realm, the earth realm, to its fullest potential. What is that? Edenic beauty, fruitfulness, shalom, and to do that from pole to pole on the planet. The Holy One's job, his chosen role is to design and create and plant and water. That's an important portion of what we'll be talking about this week. He designs, he creates, he plants, and he waters this great ecosystem. But humans are called to cultivate it and harvest it and reseed it and maintain it. So the plan calls for this whole process of Genesis 1:26 restoration of mankind to begin with one group, one family, the seed of Abraham, the one through whom it was first announced to the world. As the Holy One explained in detail the day he initiated Abraham our father, into the great venture, the day he initiated him into that, he gave these instructions. Our mishpacha's assigned role, our family's assigned role in the plan consists of being processed through 3 strategic phases. This is the grand macro of what the grand plan is. If you don't know what the grand plan is, how can you make sense of these micro stories, micro narratives? So the 3 phases, they are all pulled out in Genesis 12:1-3, the initial encounter with Abraham. The first phase is the Lech Lecha phase. Go out, get out, go out, find who you are, find yourself, be different. Lech Lecha, go out, and told Abraham to go out from his father's house and his family and his land of his birth. It's the idea of having a radical departure that leads to separateness and distinction from the nations, from the raging nations. There must be someone set apart, a nation set apart, a people, a family set apart that becomes a guide for the rest of the nations. Lech Lecha, the Lech Lecha phase was phase 1. You see it in Genesis 12, 12, 13, 14, and so on, so on, so on, so before it goes to the next phases. And you see it also happening with Bnei Israel in the macro level in Exodus as we and take some of the Gentiles with us. So this is phase one, Lech Lecha. We're past that now. We're into phase two. We've been in phase two for months in our studies. All these micro-narratives of the desert so far have been in the second phase, which is the Legoy Gadol, and I will make of you a great nation. He's been in this great nation building process now. And the third phase is coming up. This great nation building phase is for him to give us a gradual transformation, ultimate extreme bridal makeover, I call it at times. This gradual transformation that occurs through regular interaction with, regular guidance from, regular training by, regular service to, and regular discipline at the hand of the Holy One. It's all these elements. Regular interaction with. Do you have a regular interaction process protocol with the Holy One? Do you get guidance from him? Do you get training by him? Are you being trained by him? Are you giving service to? Are you doing something to glorify and honor him? And are you getting his discipline as a father disciplines a son? These are all elements of this making the great nation. And by the process of doing these things, he builds us into a holy and a humble and a wise and a world-changing and a paradigm-shifting collective or nation. That's Genesis 12:2. Phase 1 was Genesis 12:1. It's a very basic form. Genesis 12:2 is the second of that, the third phase, which we're about to enter with Parsha Chukat. I'm giving you the great macro. We're going to get into the micro stories in just a moment. The great macro is the third phase of the story. Is about to begin. The third phase of the grand plan. After Lech Lecha, after Esaseka Legoy Gadol, we have third. And he says in chapter Genesis 12:3, Avareka, I will bless those who bless you. Aor, and I will curse those who kalal you, who demean you, defame you. And this third part of the phase is when we have actual interactions with the nations. We're reintroduced on the world stage. We're brought forth into the spotlight of the world, and everyone's eyes are on us. At the appointed time, we will be called to come forth, and we will serve as what I call the Holy One's canary in the great earthly coal mine. The coal mine of the nations, we're the canary. We are here to reveal the toxicity. When the toxicity comes, or to reveal the healthiness. If the canary sings, you can continue the coal mining operations. If the canary stops singing, you need to get out of the coal mine because things are getting really toxic and the air is getting poisonous. So we are to function in the nations as the canary functions in the coal mine, revealing those who choose the way of tov, of good, where it counts the most, on the one hand, and those who choose the way of ra, evil, or self-obsessed narcissism, or national ethnic narcissism on the other side. Some, you see, will choose the tov, will bless us, and they will thus demonstrate the desire on their part and the potential within them to become a positive, constructive, synergistic force that the Holy One can use in his long-term healing strategy. But those others will choose the way of Ra, and they will curse us. They will let their mouths speak evil of us, and they will let their hearts be angry at us and hate us and condemn us and accuse us. These will be, by choosing this way, they will constitute a dangerous, destructive force in the ecosystem that the Holy One knows must be kept on a short leash at best and rooted out at worst. At Genesis 12:3, he promised this would happen. This is the third phase, and now we're about to enter the third phase. We're in it as far as the world knows today, but this is the great parable that tells us the grand plan. Phase 1 and 2 of the plan are now complete. Phase 3 is ready to begin. Are you ready for this? We're not only about to re-enter the world stage, we are about to find ourselves squarely in the center of the spotlight, and we will be powerless once we enter it to escape it. All eyes of the world, of their aging nations, will suddenly be upon us. That's the plan, believe it or not. All their agitators and all their rebel rousers and all their demagogues and all their talking heads will arise, and they'll come forth out of every ethnicity and out of every nationality and out of every ideology and every political system to echo the accuser's slander against us and to blame us for all the fallen world's ills and to come up with conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory over us about us and blood libel over blood libel toward us. We will be typecast in these third phase as villains, vilified as criminals. We will be disparaged. We'll be decried. We'll be denounced. We'll be dehumanized. We will be demonized. We'll be called everything from pigs and apes to demons to dark spirits. Oh, we will be feared, but we will be mocked. We will be persecuted, and we will be hated, and we will be assaulted. And yes, that's all part of the plan to reveal what's in the heart of the men in ways that the world cannot deny. The Holy One already knows what's in the heart of men, what's in the heart of the raging nations. But he also knows that within the raging nations, there's an Elias there who will join Abraham. There are the mixed multitude who will join Bnei Israel. There are the Rahabs. There are the Tamars. There are the Ruths. There are the Gehazis. There are all these within the raging nations that disparage and decry and denounce and dehumanize and demonize us, assault and attack us. There is always the one, the two, the one, the 91 that he leaves the 99 for and goes after. Now, we know that part of the cost we pay is that we will become the obsession of every chauvinist, every racist, every ideologue, and every spiritist in the world. And their delusions of unaliving us, yes, they will have mass delusions of unaliving us and driving us from the river to the sea and such nonsense. These delusions will become the recurring fantasy of all who drink from the witch's brew of Ra, evil, Chukat, corruption, Hamas, violence and cruelty, Keselut, which is folly and foolishness, and Chevel, which is vanity. All those who drink of that witch's brew will have delusions of unaliving us. Well, that's our mission. That's our deployment. That's our assignment. We are to come here to come as doves, as harmless as doves. We're here to come as canaries in the coal mine. Ready or not, it is time for us to come up out of the wilderness, out of our hiding places, out of our comfortable dens, and present ourselves to the world. Our existence is about to be known. And our presence is about to be felt in nations, in villages, in marketplaces, in pasture lands, in palaces, in parliaments, and in public forums, everywhere. Oh, we're coming out of the hiddenness. The main lesson is understanding. The assignment requires understanding the critical rules of engagement with the nations. To help us with this, Parsha Chukat begins a process where our mentor is choreographing a series of encounters for us, a series of encounters with the prototypical pathologies that exist within the raging nations among whom we will be deployed. We will come face to face with these pathologies, these prototypical pathologies. We will come face to face with them in the form of the most lawless and loveless and the most toxic and perverse ethnic groups in the world, the Edomites, the Canaanites, the Amorites, and next week in Parsha Balak, we'll expand that to the Moabites and the Midianites and the Bilamites, those followers of the way of Bilam. Now, all of these ites have one thing in common. What is that one thing they have in common, other than being lawless and loveless and toxic and perverse? The one thing they have in common that will bring all this stuff to the surface when they come face to face with us is that when they see us without even knowing why, they will feel driven, compelled to curse us, to kalal us, to speak negatively about us. And when is the heart, you see, the mouth will speak. That's the first thing. But also not just to stop with cursing and criticizing and judging us and hating us, but actually attacking and destroying us. They have this urge. It's a satanic, serpentine urge. But remember, within all those who bare their teeth and gnash at us and bear their fangs, remember there's a Tamar waiting to be found, a Rahab waiting to be called, a Ruth waiting to come forth, a Gehazi, and so many, many more. That's how phase 3 of the grand plan is going to work. Wherever the Holy One sends us, therefore, we're not to go as privileged tourists entitled to some sort of deference. We're not supposed to go as pirates in search of plunder either, looking for what we can get out of the world. We're not supposed to go as a den, a house of judgment toward all the evil people of the world. Yes, they're evil. That because, well, we'll get to that. They know no better. We're to go instead as a humble kingdom of priests, bearing good news of shalom ba'aretz, peace on earth, and goodwill toward men. That is our mission. That is our rule of engagement. Woe to us if we go any other way or take any other approach. And by doing so, make it hard for the people of the raging nations, the Ruths, the Eleazars, the Gehazis, to make the choice that we offer them to fear God, to make the choice to offer them to bless us and bless the grand plan, and to join us in the B'Tselem Adonai calling to restore mankind to his original purpose and all of creation to its original beautiful fruitfulness and its potential. We are to go on each mission the Holy One gives us and assigns us, and engage with every sphere of influence he introduces us to, wise as serpents, but harmless as doves. Or, as I said earlier, perhaps it could be also said, wise as canaries. So don't be afraid, little doves, little canaries. Just keep singing the song the Holy One gave you. Keep doing all the things you've been trained in the wilderness to do. Do each of them in its appointed time. And when you open your mouth to sing as you will, be sure to sing only the song, the sweet song the Creator gave you to sing. Don't mimic the mockingbird. Don't cause havoc everywhere you go like the jay. Don't squawk and complain like the crow. And whatever you do in phase 3 of this grand plan, in the most intense times, never forget the critical lessons you learned with the Holy One in phases 1, Lechlecha, and phases 2, Eseseka, Legorgabo. And now we get into the specific narratives and discussions of parsha number 39, Chukat. Now we understand the macro narrative, we go to the micro narrative. And this parsha Chukat, will introduce us to the final phase of our destiny, becoming proficient in both diplomacy for the kingdom and divinely choreographed encounters with people who misunderstand us, who fear us, who hate us, and who wish to kill us. The general outline of the parsha begins with something seemingly out of place, the para adma discourse, the red heifer and the waters of the meh nidah, the waters of nidah, cleansing, purification. That's how it begins. It's the cure before the cure before we get the disease. The disease is about to hit us in later parts of the parsha when we see these negative interactions with all the nations. But before it happens, he wants us to have the hook, the flowing wadi of water washing over us, hydrating us, purifying our minds and cleansing our hearts. The para adma discourse of how to separate the holy from the profane and the clean from the unclean. The second part of the parsha will be the 38 silent years, which will pass without mention. 38 years will pass in our grand micro-narrative here. And the micro-narrative will one day will be just a year out of Egypt, and then we'll be wind up without any saying a word. Will be 39 years out of Egypt. 38 years will pass silently without mention. And a lot of things have happened, but we don't even know those stories. The next story is third phase. Third phase begins 38 years after the last thing we read. And then as the new phase begins, the 38 years have passed, we start a fresh review of what's going on with Bnei Israel. He will resume the march. We will resume the march from Egypt to Canaan in process. Bnei Israel will then go into Kadesh, the place called Kadesh, not Kadesh Barnea, but Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zini. We'll be making our way again toward the promised land. And Miriam then will die. And when Miriam will die, the water will stop flowing. And we will complain, if only we had died with our brothers in... Why did you bring us out here? Why? And then we'll have the Meribah transgression. Moshe will strike the rock instead of doing what he's told to do, which is speak to the rock. Selah, speak to the Selah, Debartim Selah. He won't do that. He'll strike the rock, and his destiny will be capped right there at that moment, because it will be an act of rebellion, an act of anger, of arrogance, an act where he didn't follow the rules of engagement. punished for that. He was told that this capped his destiny. The next thing we'll have is that we begin to encounter the nations. The rebuff we receive from the first one, which is the king of Edom. The king of Edom will ask him for permission to go through his land, get rites of passage through his land. Rites of innocent passage, as it's called, but he will refuse, and he will bare his teeth and his fangs, and he will gnash at us, and he will tell us, if you step 1 foot on my land, on our territory, this is what we deal with the raging nations. This is step 1, lawless, loveless people in the world, and we have to learn how to deal with that. We don't go to war with everyone who makes a face at us or says nasty things to us. We have to sometimes let the pillar of fire and cloud lead us around and go the long way home. So after the rebuff of the king and the minions of Edom, we will come to Mount Hor, and Aaron will pass on the high priesthood to Eleazar, his son. And then we go from there. We get, as we're mourning for Aaron after he passes away, we get attacked by Canaanites. A Canaanite war band comes and attacks and starts taking captives. This is one of the great lessons we have to learn about what happens. This is the one thing we cannot allow captives to be taken. They have learned this lesson very well, as you know. One thing Israel does not do is let captives be taken without attempts to rescue them. We will do what is necessary to rescue captives. That's taught to us in this first set of encounters with the third, with the world and raging nations. So captives are taken, and we have war with Arad, and we recover our captives. And we lay waste to the cities in which they held those captive hostage. And then we go into the next phase, which is we are going a long way home, so we have to go to the east, cross the river to the Jordan River Valley, and go into the land of Moab and Ammon on the east side of the Jordan. And so we start within the valley of Zered, we go upward, we go to the brook of Arnon. These are all waterways, wadis that come into the Jordan River Valley from the lands of Moab and Ammon. And we will come to a certain place, and we'll sing Ali Ba'er, spring up, O well. Ali Ba'er, spring up, O well. And then we'll have a vision from the top of Pisgah. And then we will be attacked. This is where the tension mounts, and where the pressure begins to get heavy, and the canary has to learn how to sing. And so we will have first be attacked by Sichon, the Amorite warlord. And he and his minions and his armies will come at us full speed, full force, and we will fight them at Yachatz in the land of Moab, and victory will be given to us by the Holy One. Though we were not really prepared for that kind of an attack, the Holy One gave us their victory over the attacking hordes of Sichon, and the territory that he owned from the Arnon to the Yabok Brook became ours without even wanting it. It became ours. And then on the heels of that, we'll have war with another Amorite warlord, Og, this great giant of a man. He will come with his minions against us at a place called Edrei, and we will have victory again in the same way. Miraculous victory with no casualties, and yet we will completely be able to wipe out the adversary and take over their lands. Well, then we will set up our final wilderness camp on the plains overlooking the Jordan River and Jericho. This is this basic micro storylines. I left out a couple. I left out the issue of some serpents, or some fiery serpents who bit us along the way. But we'll get into that as we go. The Parsha we're talking about is a Parsha of waters of passing. Rites of passage, rites of innocent passage, waters of passing, and from the realm of death to the realm of life. The realm of being victims of death and decay, destruction as it were in Egypt, to bringing life and health and peace and offering opportunities of life to the world, to the nations. This is the waters of passing, the Parsha of that water. This is the Parsha of Moshe's final miracle with the rod, when he didn't understand and didn't grasp, or was too dry to get the secret of moving into a new phase beyond striking with the rod, fighting and warring and clamoring, and into actual speaking slowly and tenderly of the good news of the Holy One. The water will come forth, but he will use his rod when he should have used his tone of voice in this mode. The next thing we'll have is the drying up of the well of Miriam's wellspring will dry up. As she passes away, the well, the water's not gone. It's just that it won't come forth because there's no one to sing and call it forth. Sweet psalmist of Israel needs to come forth. Someone step forward. And Moshe did not do that. And Aaron did not do it either. And so we have in the next phase of our story the passing of Aaron and the transformation of his son Eleazar into the high priest. And so we have then the next phase will be the seraphim and serpents. Of seraphim, of seraphs, and of serpents in the desert. All of that will happen in this week's Parsha. Finally, we will face the wrath and the disdain of the nations that rage. And we'll face the hatred and the conspiracy theories of the peoples that imagine vain things. All right. Opening lines of Parsha 39, Parsha Chukat, from 19:1 through 2, the book of Numbers, the Para Adma discourse. Here's how it begins. I'll read to you in Hebrew and then follow it with an English translation. Vayadaber Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aharon lemor. And then the Holy One spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, saying, So Chukat HaTorah Asher ziva Adonai. This is the training protocol. This is the washing wadi of life, for the rivers of life that the Holy One ordained. Lemor debar el bnei Israel, saying, declare to the children, the seed of Israel, Vayiku eleka para aduma, to take, you are to take for yourselves a red heifer. Tamima asher ein bamun, a whole one, mature one, perfect one, without a blemish. Asher lo alake o, one who has come no yoke ever. And then I'll go into English for faster service here. Entrust it to Eleazar HaKohen, to take this red heifer, and entrust it to Eleazar the Kohen, the priest, the new high priest, that he may take it outside the camp and have it slaughtered in his presence. And then Eleazar the Kohen is to take some of its blood in his finger and sprinkle it on blood 7 times directly in front of the tent of meeting. This protocol is supposed to be put in place. And the heifer is then to be burned in his sight. Its hide, its flesh, its blood, its offal, and all that's to be burned in one place. And the priest is to take cedar wood, 4 ingredients: cedar wood, the ashes, the heifer, cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet dye, and cast them in the midst of the fire in which the heifer is being burned. And then a man of tahara, is a clean man, a man who is whole and well, is to gather the ashes of the heifer and store them outside the camp in a clean place, a place of set apart to life. And there to be kept for the witness throng of Bnei Israel. Lameh nidah, for the waters of purification. This is a chuk. This is our instruction that we should always know that there is a way to be cleansed, a way to be purified from the slime of the tumat met, the death cycle, the death spiral. It is for hatahu. It is for the amelioration, the calming, the healing of breaches of the covenant. Okay, so let's give our short summary of the Parsha, and then you can talk about it as you meet together if you do today, or in your own private studies you can meditate on these things. Here's the story, the micro story that builds into the greater macro story. The pillar of fire leads us, as Bnei Israel, into Bamidbar Zin, to Meribah, the place that will be called Meribah forever. And after the death of Miriam, our matriarch, the water ceases to flow from the rock. We've been drinking out of that water in the middle of the desert. It's been a miraculous provision since Horeb, since before Horeb at Rephidim. And now we've been seeing that this water is flowing, but when Miriam passes away, strangely, it ceases to flow. It's not dried up. It just ceases to flow. There is nothing to call it forth. So complaints begin to break out. And Moshe and Aaron seek instructions from the Holy One. They bow their faces to the earth and they pray. And the Holy One appears to them. And he says, Dibartim al ha selah. Speak to the rock. And Achem, right in front of their eyes. V'natan me'imav, and bring forth water. V'hotzeta lahem mayim min haselah, and bring forth, cause to issue forth this water from the rock. Speak to the rock. Debartim al haselah. That's what he told them. Huh. That's what he said. But instead of following the Holy One's instructions, Moshe goes on a rage-filled rant. He's done it before. He did it in Egypt to the taskmaster or to the Egyptian. He's done it before at different places. He did it, and we won't go into the details of it now, but he's goes on a rage-filled rant, and he uses his rod to strike the rock in a fit of rage. And he calls the Bnei Israel names, rebels, and he takes upon himself the ability to bring forth water from this rock, and saying, well, do we have to bring this forth from you, in very angry tones, instead of just calling forth the water, singing the canary song. It's calm shalom. Well, the Holy One allows the water to come forth because he wants water for the people. But the Holy One touches Moshe and Aaron and advises them that because of this act of degradation of his name, of exaltation of themselves, being arrogant, proud, that at this critical stage in the nation's development, doing that then caused them not to be able to be the ones to lead Bnei Israel into the land. But we say, why? What? Really? Is it that big a deal that he lost his temper and didn't do what he was told to do, but did something totally different? Yes, to our leader, for someone in his position and Aaron's position, not to step in and do something different, not to go into intercession, not to maintain their calm, shalom. That was what disqualified them. See, the rock of Horeb, as I said, had not run dry. It had just lost the song to which its river danced. The rivers will dance. Well, the river of life will dance. And if you picture this river coming from the rock, picture the Garden of Eden and all the discussions of the four rivers coming forth from the fountainhead in the rivers, and that watered the entire earth. The rock of Horeb had not run dry. It had just lost the song to which its river danced. With Miriam gone, it needed a new singer to step forward and sing the next verse of the song and restart its flow, beginning for phase 3 of the Great Mission. It needed less percussion and more Ashira Ladana, more I will sing unto the Holy One. It needed less pounding beat and more joyful lyric and melody. It needed something sweet to come forth, release the water, but Moshe was too dry for the moment. So all he contributed was, as I say in other places, more cowbell. Percussion. He used a stick and made noise with a stick, and made noise with his mouth. But how could he, our beloved Moshe Hanavi, our prophet, how could Moshe Rabbeinu, our rabbi, our leader, how could he have misread this situation so badly? What was needed so badly? And if he did this, even he did this, well, could we? Do we have rules of engagement too? Do we have an expectation from the Holy One, a calling from the Holy One to maintain our calm, to maintain direction and stay on the rules of engagement, as opposed to letting our tempers flare and letting our mouths spout, ranting and cursing? When the world needs us most, what will we do? In this third phase of the grand plan, how will we act? When the world needs us most, will all we have to offer be more cowbell? Heaven forbid. But the lessons are learned from these stories of the Torah. Human beings need water for many purposes, you see. We need water for hydration. We need water for hygiene. We need water for health. And we need it for so many more things. The human body is so dependent upon water. And the earth, atmosphere, ecosystem is dependent upon water. Perhaps we even need water to be here so we're moved into and calmed by the frequency that water emits, which is a healing frequency. And consider that man's initial habitation on earth was in the presence of a river that flowed out of Egypt to water the garden. Consider what the end habitation, the final habitation will be on this earth. Revelation 22, 1 through 2, the waters of life, the river of life will flow, bringing healing to the nations. What happens then if we need water this badly? If this is so much an element of who we are, not just physical water, but spiritual water. What happens when the flow of water stops and the quickening frequency of the water disappears? Well, what happens is, beloved, that people start drying up. Fatigue sets in. Tissues begin to deteriorate. Organs begin to go into panic mode, survival mode, crisis mode. The brains and the nerve center of the body malfunctions, disorientation and delusion set in. Attitudes start getting toxic. Reality begins to fade into illusion. Life just does not compute. We do not understand. Dry humans then become like dry places, and they become quite the challenge to navigate, the haunt of jackals. So you encounter people that are dry, that have the dryness factor setting in. Be kind. Dry people are not evil necessarily. They're just dry. Now, when you encounter dry people in dry situations, anyone can raise a stick like Moshe did in his parsha and raise his or her vocal tone and add more cowbell. But all creation, like the rock of Horeb, groans in eager expectation for a people to arise, a people who will eschew violence and cowbell and percussion and speak life, speak calmly, speak peaceably, speak beautifully, speak this canary song in ways that activate the water frequency and hydrate us and cleanse us and give us health. Remember the key factor we're going to learn from Moshe, who knew this well now. Deuteronomy 28:47-48, he's going to say, because you did not serve the Holy One with joy and gladness of heart. In other words, you let your emotions get toxified and negativized. You let your anger and your frustration, your dryness control you. Because you did not serve the Holy One with joy and with gladness of heart, therefore you will serve your enemies. We'll learn this well. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Moshe will send emissaries to the king of Edom who will try to negotiate the rights of innocent passage. The king of Edom will refuse to allow passage and threaten to destroy Bnei Israel. We will see this pattern keep coming up of cursing and threatening to destroy. The pillar of fire will then lead us the long way home around through Moab. We go to Mount Hor, and Eleazar will become the high priest, and Aaron will pass away and be mourned. For 30 days of mourning, during that 30 days of mourning, the king of, warlord rather, of Arad, called the king of Arad, the Canaanite, will attack us, and they will take some of our kinsmen and women hostage. A war will ensue, because that's what happens when you take hostages, and our family members will be rescued, and the cities of Aradah, where they were kept, will be laid waste. It's an all too familiar, oft-repeated story, is it not? Remember Lot and his family, rescued by Avram and the herdsmen? Remember Dinah, avenged by her brothers? Remember the Hamashian invasion of October 7, 2023? And that story is one we're still unfolding as we have this conversation. Just leave, don't take hostages, and you will understand we won't have to respond in this way. Well, Bnei Israel is going to cross then over into the land of Moab. Like our fathers, we will start complaining. And the Holy One will send an infestation of something called Hanekashim, Haseraphim, the fiery serpents as he translated into English. And these Hanekashim, Haseraphim, will bite and vex many in the camp, and many deaths will occur in the desert. Remember, that was going to happen anyway. The people will then confess the transgression as part of the micro story and will ask for forgiveness, and Moshe will pray. And the Holy One will give him another set of instructions like he did before the waters, whenever the waters dried up at Meribah. The instructions the Holy One gives in Hebrew are very clear. Aseh lecha seraph. Forge a seraph, one of like the seraphim, the creatures. It doesn't say make a serpent. It says, Vesum oto al nes, and set it in place on a banner. So make a seraph, because we've seen that imagery right from the tabernacle. We should know what that means. Even though Bezalel and Oholiab may not be there because we're not mentioned as being the ones in crafting this item, but Moshe is supposed to craft the item, but it's supposed to be a seraph. And he's supposed to set it in place on a banner so that all who will look on it can live. Now Moshe is again going to improvise. He's dry. And he chose to make a serpent, a nakash, not a seraph, a nakash on a pole. And do it out of nekoshet, bronze. We didn't have, they wasn't told what to make it out of. But a very earthy substance of nekoshet, bronze, copper, tin, or copper and nickel. And he affixed it to the nes, or the standard, or the pole. And the Holy One healed those who looked at it anyway, like he had provided water from the rock, even though Moshe had not extremely exactly followed his instructions. Moshe will then send forth ambassadors to the Emori, to the warlord Sihon, and he'll seek passage through that land Sihon will refuse, come on with a full frontal assault, and our outmanned and outgunned warriors will fight for their survival and the survival of their wives and children, and they will prevail. And when the smoke clears, our boys will be in possession of all Sihon's land, from the Arnon to the Yabok. And then Og the giant will come with everything he has against us, and his army will also fall before our boys. And the vast network of pasturelands and cities that they control will be dropped into our forefathers' laps as well. That's a lot to unpack. Before it all, the Holy One gives us cure before the disease. And that's the Lameh Nidah. The Lameh Nidah discourse, the waters of purification discourse. Oh, beloved, if you understand, we need water. We need to know there's a cleansing mechanism. That even if we fail, even if we transgress, even if we violate, even if we lose and don't follow the rules of engagement, there's a way to be made clean. And the way to be made clean is laid out for us in a parable of a red heifer and his ashes. Oh, beloved, be made whole. Be made well. Go to the source. Go to the water. And dip yourselves in it. It's time for me to leave you now. I want to say Shabbat Shalom to you, and I want to encourage you, if you want more details about these studies, particularly in Parshat Chukat, you can go to the biblicallifestylecenter.org website and go to the page that's called the Rabbi Son page. And on that Rabbi Son page, among the things you can access there is a set of archives. And the archives go book by book of the Torah and parsha by parsha of the books. And you can find all the studies. There are 6 studies for Parshat Chukat, and there will be 6 studies next week for Parshat Balak as well. That's the next one we'll study. And if while you're there, if you don't mind, because we do need funds to keep this process in operation, if you're there, you see the donate button, click on the donate button, and whatever the Holy One lays upon your heart to give, help us to do what we're doing here, to spread it to the world as we enter phase 3 of the grand plan, facing and behaving responsibly toward the raging nations. Shabbat Shalom.